Mr. Graves,
Okay, I'm
you
sorry.
seek recognition, sir?
Yes, sir, I do. I apologize. We're having continuing to having cell connection issues. Mr. Chairman, I make to adjourn. Mr. Chairman,
Wait,
last
can you,
last markup session. I'm sorry.
if the gentleman would suspend, uh, we're having audio trouble, at least I am, and not getting uh, the full consideration that you're moving. So if you would do that one more time, and then we
Is
can
this
proceed.
any better, Mr. Chair? Can you hear me now, sir?
Yeah, now we can. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's stay here. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Mr. Chairman, last week,
Sure.
I still am just shocked at the committee's insensitivity to what's going on. We continue to just be reeling from this natural disaster. We have wind speeds that were clocked at 194 miles an hour, and I believe you're aware of even what happened in New York and New Jersey. I think deaths I read were up to 82, I think. I was accused last week of I think impersonating a person that's rescuing kittens from trees. Mr. Chairman, just yesterday we had 11 heat deaths, 11 just yesterday, because of the fallout, the repercussions of this disaster. Mr. Chairman, if this were in your district or others, I really think that the committee would be acting very differently, and rather than focused on what the right things are for recovery and electricity restoration and cell restoration and internet and water and wastewater and other fundamental needs that people have here, we're talking about spending money on things that quite frankly aren't American priorities. They're financially irresponsible, and
The
just
gentleman suspend
really
just for Mr.
concerning.
Graves. Mr. Graves, just for a second. Your motion is to adjourn, and that's not debatable. Is it postpone or adjourn the meeting? Mr. Graves? We cannot hear you.
It's a motion to postpone.
Thank you. Proceed.
I
Thank you.
apologize. So, Mr. Chairman, look, and even listening to the debate last week, you had folks trying to connect this bill with Hurricane Ida and the experiences we're having with the hurricanes. Mr. Chairman, some of the statements that were made were so careless, reckless, and irresponsible that to think that these are people that are making decisions for our nation with the fraction of information that they have. Mr. Chairman, for example, people were out there saying that we need to do this bill because it's going to stop future hurricanes. Mr. Chairman, even the most aggressive climate scientists recognize that even if we were to slash emissions, that you'd be looking at a lag of 75 to 100 years, 75 to 100 years to see any type of potential impact in weather patterns. And folks are out there, even President Biden just last week was out there saying that we've got to reduce emissions globally. You know what? I agree with it. I agree with Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the Paris Climate Accords results in emissions going up, and John Kerry's out there popping champagne corks and backslapping. Emissions go up. China's releasing more than every developed country in the world combined today. And under Paris Accords, they get to increase by another 50%. I think that this committee could use a little bit more remedial education. Look, myself included, to make sure that we're moving forward in a way that actually makes sense. It's based on science. It's relevant and recognizing really what's happening even right here in my home state. My time is not best served doing this. It's best served out there trying to help people. Just last week, Mr. Chairman, I went and brought an oxygen tank to a constituent, an oxygen tank, because crazy story, I won't get into it. Brought her an oxygen tank after having to drive around, find a hospital, get her an oxygen tank. And I got to tell you, I was sitting there excited to think, gosh, we just saved this lady's life. And I said, hey, how long is this tank going to last? You know what she told me? 4 hours. 4 hours. So it was like, oh my gosh. And it's that situation times 1,000. And we had people that died because their insulin wasn't refrigerated. And look, I understand y'all are in other places right now, and it's totally out of sight, out of mind, but we've got fundamental problems right now. These are fellow Americans, and I just like to ask for a little bit of sensitivity. Let's postpone this. I will participate. I'll still offer my 100 amendments and everything that I know you love, but this is ridiculous. People are saying and doing things that are totally factless and moving forward in an irresponsible way that's going to trash this nation's economy, and it's entirely insensitive to what's going on right now. And let me say it one more time, Mr. Chairman. Just yesterday, 11 heat-related deaths. So while I'm being accused of saving kittens and trees, we're trying to work to save lives. Those lives are lost because those people don't have power. They don't have generators. We've had 145 people go to the hospital because of carbon monoxide poisoning. This isn't a joke. This is life. And I'd like to ask Mr. Chairman if you would be willing to postpone this markup. Is that something you'd be willing to do, a yield?
Thank the gentleman for yielding. No, I think I don't want to get into a lengthy response, Mr. Graves, because that's the essence of the debate that we're having over many things on this committee. But suffice, in response to your specific point and the people you represent and the suffering that they're going through, I don't think there's a member of this committee on both sides of the aisle that doesn't believe that relief, not only expedited but urgent, has to be the priority. And our staff and as your staff, that's been something that they've been directed to do, and they're doing that, advocating for that relief, immediate and urgent. The other issue is the recovery, and that's what we're talking about with the overall legislation and reconciliation. And the recovery, I think, speaks to how you define that recovery, sir. After the relief, after the support, and after the intervention that is so needed right now in the region, how do we define a recovery? And I think our definition of it is about long-term and mitigate and hopefully lessen the impact of these natural catastrophes that are linked to climate change. And so that's where we're at. That's the debate. And I appreciate your comments, and I appreciate what you're doing for your constituents that are going through a hell of a lot. So,
and Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you expressing some sensitivity, because I haven't seen it at all from the committee on your side, and I do appreciate that. But are you not concerned at all that we're gonna spend $3.5 trillion under this proposed legislation, and our ability to even come back and offer assistance to people that need it, like people in the wildfires and people that have experienced this disaster? Does that not concern you that we just continue printing money? We're going to see crazy inflation, and our ability as a nation to even help people that truly need it versus some of the irresponsible spending that is not even requested under this legislation. I mean, look at the numbers in this bill. They're numbers where they're all round numbers, 100 for this and $1 billion for that. There's no justification for this. Somebody just sat there and played a math game.
well,
is that not a concern for you at all?
okay, this is gentleman yields to me, and I cannot agree to postpone. Given the time frame we have set for achieving the Build Back Better agenda, this is the time frame we're on, and postponing, delaying, and by, as I've said 2 or 3 times, and by attrition somehow derail that effort. That's not going to happen, and so I cannot agree to postpone, and because not because of any lack of understanding for the natural tragedies that are around us right now, but because precisely because of those things that I think we need to and have to move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does the gentleman withdraw his motion?
Mr. Chairman, I see where this is going. I look forward to having some amendment debate, and because I do read the writing on the wall here, I will withdraw my motion, but I want to be clear that I do that with much regret that this committee is continuing to recklessly and irresponsibly move forward. Yield back.